is immutable. The money is decentralized.
The genesis locked to the end of the mempool. We are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution.
This is On-Chain Revolution.
Welcome back to On-Chain Revolution. My name is Yago B, and I am the host of this channel and show. We have a bloody Monday morning and Sunday evening, right? Because the Supreme Court decided it wanted to vote against Trump's tariffs. And so that makes it illegal for him to impose these tariffs the same way he's been doing for so long. So the market did not like that. But is it going to be a short-term pullback? We're going to find out. And before we do, I am actually going to repost this on X because I have to do that every single time because let me actually stop that because StreamYard has messed up the integration and made my life harder, but that's okay. I'm not able to do the TikTok lives today, so if anybody's listening from TikTok on YouTube or any other platforms, I apologize. My phone broke over the weekend while I was working, so I need to get a new phone to start. It works, but it just turns off and on. Now, I don't want a stream to turn off while it's live. But I want to welcome back Abstract, Zora, of course, YouTube, X. You guys can help me out if you'd like. It would help me out a ton if you could hit that like on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you like my content as well, and hit that like on all the platforms. And on X, if you could share the space, that would be great. It would help me out a ton. And as always, put your comments in the chat and I will get to them, your comments and questions. But today's main topic is Bitcoin slips after the tariff ruling. We all knew that was going to happen. We all knew that the Supreme Court was going to rule not in his favor. I think the highest that it got in terms of percentage on Piolymarket for them voting in his favor was 25%, right? It was just when were they going to actually put the vote out there and make the decision? And they had been kicking the can down the road for so long. I think, everybody expected this past Friday to be a situation where, boy who cries wolf type situation, right? Or just gonna kick the can down the road again. But no, the decision came in Sunday and it wrecked markets. Markets were already kind of heading that way anyways for Bitcoin and crypto. We did it. We actually got into some rare territory and managed to have our 5th week of negative returns for Bitcoin in a row. That has only happened 2 other times since 2014. So a 12-year stretch, and this is the 3rd time that we've had 5 negative return weeks for Bitcoin in a row, and we're working on our 5th month of negative returns for Bitcoin, which is very similar territory. So how bad is it going to get? It could get pretty nasty. Could this tariff situation actually be kind of this black swan type of build-up and pile-up? Potentially. There could also be a little bit of the situation maybe people aren't expecting right now, and that's, business goes back to kind of par for the course before, right? And the globalists kind of have the way that, the imports and exports have worked before, where all these companies are making so much profit and et cetera, right? So we're going to find out here in the next 2 to 3 months, because Trump is coming out saying, there's still ways for him to impose tariffs, and the ways that he has currently are much more nastier than the ways that he was doing it before. So we might not be able to shake this nasty tariff bug after all, but we're going to find out, I think, very, very soon, and probably the next 2 months of, what that's going to look like. But before we get into anything with this main topic and where Bitcoin might potentially head, let's get into the market pulse. Let's get into the pulse here, and let's hit on a couple headlines here. Before I do that, though, I want to check the chat out. I did have a couple comments in here. Joko, it's been a minute since I've seen you. And then I got Olo Abstract from the Abstract community says GM. But also Glasshopper says Merle at rock bottom. And then he says Jeff's still building. Yeah, Jeff is, I imagine they're still building, right? They are on vacation. It is Chinese New Year. And whenever Chinese New Year happens, they typically will go on vacation for like 2 to 3 weeks. It's kind of industry known in any industry that like you have manufacturers from China and stuff like that. They do take a long holiday there. But I will try to reach out to him and see what's going on. But I do know that they're kind of going through kind of this reset here. Edric says, I hope y'all are too old for the draft. Dude, I was already in the military, right? So you can see I got a little bit of salt and pepper here. But I'm not too old. But I think I would be out of that condition or situation where they could grab me. And Glasshopper says, I definitely ain't getting drafted. Myself says, apparently the third blood moon has marked the macro bottom in the past 4 cycles. And the next third blood moon in March 3rd. Okay. All right. Patapoo is a blood moon expert. Hopefully he hops in the chat and gives his thesis on maybe where the blood moon is telling us things are headed. Right. So appreciate the comments and questions. Keep dropping them in the chat. I'm going to get back to the market pulse here. And let's kind of see what happened. The destruction of the getting denied. And we'll start off with liquidation. Bitcoin hitting 64,000 yesterday triggered 508 million in liquidations in the past 24 hours. And liquidations will be rampant because the crypto industry just loves to use leverage and gamble. And it's not just retail users, because there's not a ton of retail users here, but institutions use leverage and groups use leverage, but leverage is always a huge thing, and people never learn in crypto and continually use it. I've been in those situations before, right? I mean, it does seem very enticing, but I think the longer that you're in the space, the more you realize that you got to zoom out. And the more you zoom out, the more you'll be able to get a better feel of where Bitcoin's headed in the medium to longer terms. Maybe you can use leverage to your benefit as a tool in those type of swing type of trades, low leverage, but that's not what happened here. People got liquidated a ton, right? And so that is what happened yesterday. Some key economic events this week. Monday, Trump's 15% global tariff impact on markets. Yikes. And then Tuesday, we have February consumer confidence data. Wednesday, NVIDIA's earnings. That's always a big event. Thursday, initial jobless claims. Every week we get that. Friday, January PPI inflation data. That should be big. And 11 Fed speakers event scheduled. So those are what is popping this week on the economic calendar. I was actually out this Friday because I was helping my brother's company, which he's developed a strong brand in the collectibles industry. If anybody's into cards or sports cards or Pokemon and stuff like that, head over to sappysportscards.com. You can actually get grading and all that stuff over there. But I was helping them out, and it was fun to get back into that industry. I used to be heavy into it. As I mentioned, my family's been into that. But going back here to the markets, that actual market is thriving, by the way, killing it. But this definitely hurt Bitcoin and crypto from the decision last night. Now let's take a look at what's happening in the overall markets, because it wasn't too bad for the stock market initially. I saw it kind of breaking even a little bit green. But I do think that there is some optimism from their side, hoping maybe if the tariff things go away, business as usual, get back to that type of situation. But we're so deep into the tariffs, I don't think we can just flip a switch on that kind of stuff. But let's take a look here. The S&P 500 is down 1.22%. You got the NASDAQ down 1.5% here. The Dow Jones is down 1.6%. You got the VIX up, which means volatility is up. It's popping right now. DXY is down 0.1%, and we're going to get into the dollar here in a second. There's a couple, news stories that are starting to make me raise my eyebrows a little bit here. And then you got the Russell down 1.7%. No shocker there. The Magnificent 7 down 1.3%. And then you got your giant stocks here. Nvidia is up 1.3%. People are probably anticipating the earnings, those type of things, yada, yada, yada. Google up 0.8% here. Apple up 0.28%. Tesla up down 3.1%. And Google is down 0.8%. And then Netflix down 4.22%. Futures are slightly up, with silver kind of strongly up in that futures market there. Then you got good old crypto, Bitcoin getting slammered. That is a word I just made up. Slammered and hammered together, down 3% there. And then you got Ethereum down 3.38%. While precious metals, of course, are thriving. You got gold up 1.8%. Or 7.8%, and then silver up 2.84%. Silver going back. And silver is a meme coin. I was hearing a lot about how crypto bros were just joking around. Well, not joking around, really, just saying, you guys make fun of how meme coins are so volatile. Look at silver; it has been extremely volatile, going all the way to 122, all the way back down to 70, back up to 100, back down to 70 again. Now we're climbing back to almost 90, sitting at $86 here. But gold has been consistent for sure, hanging around a little above the $5,000 mark, or below slightly whenever it does pull back. So that is the markets. Majority of it don't like what happened, but you do have precious metals thriving today, and that means people are trying to get a life preserver, in my opinion, right? But we're gonna go over some awesome news that we're going to get into here in a bit. We're going to hit on, obviously, the tariffs is the main topic, so we'll get into that a little bit. Warren Buffett's back into cash again. You know what that means. He's waiting patiently. World Liberty Fi got a USD1 coordinated attack. They're trying to do a Terra Luna, create that black swan. I think they avoided it, but we'll get into that as well. And then we're going to finish the show off with a little bit of Openclaw structure breakdown. If you are a member of the channel, I suggest that you go check out the members only video I dropped yesterday. I went into pretty deep detail of how to get started with Openclaw, but also leading up to where I am currently, which I'm pretty deep into it. But today I'm going to hit on just kind of the structure, and maybe we can learn something together, which is really cool. I learned it already, but I have a visual for you guys. So maybe it'll put some puzzle pieces together and make you feel like you can understand a little bit of how the structure of Openclaw works. And we'll end it that way, but should be a fun one. But let's get back to the main topic, right? So Bitcoin slips after tariff ruling. And what's going to happen with Bitcoin? That's the question. What is going to happen with Bitcoin now? Now, I did tell you guys that Bitcoin is going to eventually try to revisit this 200 moving average on the Bitcoin weekly chart, and that is what I'm looking at right now. And you can see that it is trending. Now, we haven't had a green candle, obviously, because this is our 5th weekly negative return for Bitcoin, but will we actually get back down into this area of touching the 200 moving average? I think there's a good chance we do, especially that we crossed over into that rare territory of hitting 5 weeks in a row. So, what needs to change is we need to get out of the sentiment of everything is doom and gloom, because there's nothing that's helping the markets right now. Nothing news-wise, news cycle-wise, nothing. The only thing is that Michael Saylor and Tom Lee are consistently buying, right? So for me, I'm still looking for a move back to kind of this close to this 200 moving average area, right? So that 60,000, 59,000. But we do need probably some more bad news, like a black swan event, to get there. That is my thoughts, right? And if we go here to the negative weekly returns, you can see this was the 5th straight week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How bad does it get? How bloody does it get? That's the question. We're on our 6th, and we're not starting it off great. But if you go through the history here and you go to 2022, this was probably the worst single stretch. You go to the 13th week, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is kind of where we are. 6, 7, 8, 9. So 4 more weeks on top of where we just finished, right? Now, that doesn't mean that's exactly what's going to happen, but it could get pretty nasty. Another situation that was similar was in 2014, right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 down here. And then you did have a stretch of 5. And so, that would be like the best case scenario if we can mimic that, right? But I feel like you starting to feel like the momentum is starting to shift over to like this negative news cycle, right? So I wouldn't be shocked if we do fall into that. Now I do think we're closer to green than like having like a super long stretch of being red, right? Because we're already going into our 6th week. But if you look at the monthly returns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're about to finish our 5th week in our 5th month as well. So and I don't think we're getting out of this because we're negative 16.24% in February as well. So we got 5 days left. I don't think that's going to happen. And we could have some crazy type of events at the end of this month, but I don't expect that. So that's where my mind is at. We're probably going to see more blood. We're probably going to see more blood in the streets, unfortunately. And we'll see how the rest of this week plays out. Obviously, I can change my mind. Some good fundamental analysis, headlines coming in, that type of thing, right? But expect the worst. Again, though, this means cheaper Bitcoin prices. This means cheaper altcoin prices as well. So are you prepared? Do you have stable on the sideline? I think that's the bigger question, because this industry is not going away. All right, so that's where I'm at with it. I do expect probably more blood, right? I don't think we just stop with 5 weeks of red in a row, but again, we will see how the rest of this week plays out. Let's get into some news headlines here. And like I said, we will start off with the tariffs. So let's get into the tariffs and what happened there. All right, so you got a headline from Cointelegraph that says Donald Trump says he can use licenses and approve tariffs in an absolutely terrible way against countries he claims have taken advantage of the U.S. Yeah, so this is kind of like where I feel like he feels like he is maybe cornered and or pressed in a corner and maybe tries to go into like a nuclear situation. Here's a problem for him right now too, though. You have to remember is that like he is going to be going to conferences and events and stuff, and he's losing leverage like whenever this stuff comes out, right? So an example of that is this story by CNBC. It says China's leverage rises, so China gets the leverage. It says before high stakes summit as Supreme Court curbs Trump's tariffs, right? It goes in to say the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to strike down Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs has strengthened China's hand ahead of a summit with counterpart Xi Jinping, where Beijing is expected to push for reduced U.S. support for Taiwan, analysts said. In a ruling Friday, the court said Trump wrongfully invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to implement broad tariffs. That decision has weakened Trump's negotiating leverage as he prepared for a trip to Beijing in April, said Wendy Cutler. He has effectively had his wings clipped on his signature economic policy, says Cutler, who was also a former U.S. trade representative. Trump will visit China from March 31st to April 2nd, the first trip by an American president since his last visit in 2017. Xi is also expected to make a state visit to Washington later this year. So, it definitely changes his approach on, strong arming countries because he doesn't have the ammo anymore. I think that's probably why he came out with that headline of saying, I can do things in the worst potential ways, just to let people that are in other countries that have, he's been tariffing and stuff like that, maybe not get too relaxed and at ease. But this is not good short term. We'll see how he's able to utilize his powers in terms of, taking a different approach by this nasty way of tariffing people, because And one thing, if he does take that approach, it's not going to help the image of the U.S. or him. So I don't know how much it's going to benefit, especially GOP for the midterms. It'd probably make everything a lot worse. And they're going to lose one of the sectors of government, right? So that's where we are with it. Hopefully, the situation gets better. I don't even know how we get better from this situation, other than going back to the Supreme Court reversing what they had the decision that they made. That's not going to happen, though. All right. Let's see what else we got here. All right. So this was interesting. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, which is the company that Warren Buffett owns and started, now holds a record of $382 billion in cash equivalents, meaning that they have a ton of cash on the side, right? So typically when this happens, we feel like there's going to be a dry period for risk on assets, right? Because they're putting things on the side because they feel like everything's going to crash. And that's not just risk on too. That can be, solid stocks as well. S&P could pull back pretty significantly. So this is not a good sign for maybe the short term in the next 3 to 6 months, because they're not confident in the stock market as well, right? Now, when you do have volatility in what, you don't know what to expect, like what we heard about the tariff situation, that's what causes this situation, right? And I tend to believe that these guys are really smart people, because they there's a reason why they have $382 billion of cash reserves there. All right, this next headline right here is also something that probably, it doesn't shock me, but it might not shock a lot of you guys, because we've known that the dollar continually gets weak, but gold has surpassed the US dollar to become the world's largest global reserve asset. Is this something that is going to be sustained? I don't necessarily think so, but the fact that it happened, right, is a big deal, especially whenever all you hear is how weak the dollar is becoming, and how the world is trying to transition into another type of world reserve asset. Now, there's a lot of smart people out there like Ray Dalio. If you haven't watched his New World Order video on YouTube, I highly suggest it. I think you will definitely learn something from that. I definitely did. Then you would know that this was something that has been coming for a long time. And also, his perspective is that there's not going to be another currency, another fiat currency that's going to take the place of the dollar. But what is it going to be? As of right now, looks like gold is kind of what everybody's reaching for. And you can see that with this evidence here. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing more and more evidence of the dollar collapsing. And but again, we've all known that's going to happen. All right, let's take a looky at this situation here. This is very interesting, and I wonder if we start to see more and more of this for USD1 and World Liberty Fi, right? Wu Blockchain reported World Liberty Fi Financial said USD1 faced a coordinated attack this morning, alleging that several WLFI co-founder accounts were hacked. Influencers were paid to spread FUD. That's so crazy that that's such a common strategy in our space. Just paying all these influencers makes you think about the influencers in crypto Twitter, man. But it says influencers were paid to spread FUD in large-scale WLFI. Short positions were open to profit from the volatility. WLFI stated that USD1 continues to trade at par, citing its one-to-one backing and mint and redeem mechanism, and urged users to rely only on verified channels for accurate information. So this is just the start of what we're hearing about with this. But if you look back at 2022, that's how a lot of these Black Swan events started, right? They start by FUD and just a little headline here and there, and then it gets followed up with, oh, okay, this is actually something that's serious, sustainable, or it's gonna be a big problem, like we saw with Terra Luna, because it got to a point where Del Quan was sitting comfortably. He thought he was good. He said, I forgot what he said, deploying more capital lads or something, sit tight. I forgot exactly what the quote was, but it was pretty funny when you look back at it. Not funny for the people that lost money, but there was a bunch of people that made a lot of money. Not a bunch, but these people that were really good at coordinating and shorting and stuff like that. Is that something that's going to happen, right? Because that would be extremely detrimental to the space, especially USD1. I mean, it's has Trump's name all over it, right? So if that were to collapse, I think the entire market would just really be in some dark days, cold, dark days. I'm talking about it'd be worse than 2022 if this were to happen. So we don't want this to happen because it would be just not great. Now, for the greedy side of me, I do want it to happen because then I could probably get Bitcoin back into the 20,000s, maybe low 30,000s, mid to low 30,000s. I don't know how low Bitcoin would go, but there would definitely be some alts that would crash pretty hard. That is for sure. So this is something that we need to keep our eyes on and see if we start to see any more kind of little headlines, talking about it. Because if we do, then we probably need to have our antennas up even more. But as for now, this is the first we're hearing of it. So hopefully that this is not something more serious. All right. We're about to get into the Bitcoin and crypto price action and crypto bubbles. If you guys have any tokens you want me to check out, just drop them in the chat and I will check them out for sure for you guys. All right. Let's pull it up. All right. Let's see what's happening with Bitcoin here on the hour chart. Maybe we can get a decent feel of where it's heading. But I will tell you this, though, it has been pretty downtrendy since yesterday to where it's been really hard to have any sustainable uptrends. Now, this did happen after these two huge candles to the downside, but we'll see. Maybe I was talking about a little bit more this morning. If you look this morning, it definitely has a lot of downward selling pressure. You can see the momentum is going back down to the downside again, or a continuation here. You see it coming out as the stochastic or the overbought territory on the stochastic RSI. And you can see the MACD is closing up here, right? So you're seeing the momentum indicators pointing to more down, right? So maybe for the next 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, we see Bitcoin try to test try to see if we go down to this low area right here, which is early February, and sweep this area. If that were to happen, that would be nasty, but that would bring us back to the 200 moving average on the weekly chart. So that is something that could happen. Now we do have some ways to go to get there. So it could take, the rest of this week. But as of right now, for the next 2 to 4 hours, it does look like it wants to head down further. And break out of this. Now, that doesn't mean that this can't stop here. You're starting to see a little bit of momentum stopping on this fast line here, on this blue line, where maybe it wants to curl up here. So something to look at. Also, it did eat back up this candle. You see the wick is right there. So, I definitely would be watching this in the next hour or so to see which direction it wants to really commit to. Because as of right now, yes, the momentum indicators are showing it wants to go down a little bit further, but it's not being hyper aggressive, especially on this hour candle, right? So I would probably pause a bit and let's give it like an hour to see which direction it wants to take before having that strong confidence and conviction in where it wants to go for the next 2, 4, 6 hours. That's where I'm at with this. All right, let's take a look at the 4-hour chart here. The 4-hour chart looks like it's breaking down some of the sell pressure session here for Bitcoin, right? Now, you do want to see this blue line start to curl up here to get more conviction on that, but this is definitely showing some cracks here. Do we stay and head back down into oversold territory? Could you see that right here? Or do we come out? Because what I'm seeing with the MACD is breaking down a little bit, but the stochastics, you see this fast line kind of curling down. So a little mixed signals here. But the one thing I will say is the 4-hour is showing a little bit of breakdown of the sell pressure. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the shorter term time frame, the hour time frame that I was just talking about there. All right, let's look at the daily here. Daily is coming out of buy pressure. So, you know, we had our buy pressure session here. Do we drop down below? That is something to take a look at and kind of follow throughout the days of this week, especially the early days of this week. Do we kind of come out of that and go back into sell pressure, which would be probably, I don't think we just go back into a, let me actually, I hate whenever that happens. It's extremely strong sell pressure like this. I mean, look how intense this was. This was very intense. It broke down now, you know, so this is something to look at as well. Now, we know that March is a period to where price in crypto does rebound. We have tax return stuff. We have people that are wanting to use some of their money to get into a little bit of risk on assets. Does that happen in March? Most likely, we probably see some sort of jump up. You know, again, 5 weeks in a row. Do we get 9? I mean, that's tough, right? It's tough. It's either been 5 or which happened once, or 8 or 9. So, you know, let's hope for the 5 if you want Bitcoin and crypto to go up. All right, so that is a Bitcoin. Let's take a quick look at Ethereum, see if it's pretty much following Bitcoin or if it's doing its own thing. Let's look here on the hour chart. On the hour chart, breaking down, looks like it wants to head down a little bit more. We're sitting at 1897. How cheap can Ethereum get? That is the question. On the 4 hour, it looks like it wants to come out of sell pressure, but let's kind of hang on here and see where Bitcoin wants to go, as well as just in general, because they're reading very similarly, almost the exact same on their momentum indicators on the 4 hour chart. So I would give the same read that I just gave on Bitcoin. Same thing with the daily. A little bit stronger for ETH on the daily, though. You can see right here, the momentum is a little bit stronger for ETH on the daily. We'll see if we maintain this pop out. We definitely would need some good news. That is for sure. So that's Bitcoin and Ethereum for you guys. Let's see what's happening in the chat here. We got Superfan says GM. Hey, Superfan, on X, I'm seeing a lot of people talking about agentic, I guess, like marketplaces. And so maybe that's something we can cover on Wednesday, but I'll talk to you about that outside of chat. But GM to you. And then we got Patapoo says, sup, Yago B. What is up, Patapoo? We got myself earlier talking about the blood moon. Maybe you can give some insight on the blood moon in your blood moon calendar, because you are a blood moon expert and you can pull your tarot cards out and tell everybody, you know, what their future is as well. No, but definitely could get into that blood moon stuff. It seems like it's accurate at different times. That is for sure. All right, let's get into the alts here. As you can see on the crypto bubbles in the top 100, you got Pippin. This guy, Pippin is popping. Pippin is popping at $718 million market cap. Oh my God, it's crazy. So this is the AI meme coin that fluctuates between 400 million and what looks like 700 million, right? There's definitely some huge whales in it. I've seen there's the social media, I guess, like interaction with Pippin and stuff like that. But be careful if you are in this, if you're new to it, or at least that's what I'm telling myself, because you know, 2 weeks ago, this thing was driving up to right at 600 million. The very next day dropped to 400 million. 390, something like that. So be careful. But hey, I will say it has maintained its top 100 position, you know, for at least the past couple of weeks. So there's money in it. It's just very extremely volatile. All right, let's take a look at Hyperliquid here. Is down 8.5%. But big news with Hyperliquid. Hyperliquid to me is basically becoming one of the institutional star childs, I would say, because I'm going to get into a headline here, but they are courting, or being courted, I should say, both ways, probably, by institutions left and right. They love them. But they're down 8.5% today for good reason. You know, the founder, Jeff, and his team has done an amazing job with Hyperliquid's protocol and the token management and all that stuff. All right, you got Pump pulling back 7%. I actually found out this is actually Lighter. So Lighter is down 5.7% here. You got Tezos down 2.7%. Sol pulling back 4.4%. Tau pulling back 3.3%. Tau's been all over crypto Twitter recently because of the AI movement, which the AI coins will benefit from this, because the AI conversation is not going away. I'll tell you that. This is not 2024 Q4 of 2024. That was a hype period. This is OpenAI acquiring Openclaw for a lot of money, and they wouldn't do that for a short-term hype. Anyways, all right, what else we got? Bonk down 2.3%. You got Jupiter down 2.7%. Algorand down 2.7%. Ondo pulled back 3%. HBAR pulling back 2%. AVAX pulling back about 3%. Pangu pulling back 2.6%. Virtuals pulling back 3.5%. And some of the other stuff that's popped a little bit. Polygon back in the green here and back in headlines. They're constantly in headlines. So Polygon deserves a green day. They're up 4.7%. ETHFi is up 3.2%. WLFI is actually up 0.7% after being attacked. Interesting. And then you got CC up 1. And this is Canton. The privacy, I think they're a privacy chain, privacy network. JP Morgan uses them. They're up 1.3% here. All right, we got a chat here. Okay, so Patapoo says Bear Moon ends March 4th. Last day for Bear Moon. So whatever you guys do, whenever Bear Moon's about to end, it's about to end. So do what you do. But Patapoo is the guy when it comes to blood moons, bear moons, full moons, all these things, and he has all the info on that. So appreciate that information there. All right, let's take a look at the top 200. In the top 200, you got majority of everything's pulled back. SPX is down 10.4%. Fartcoin is down 14.6%. So probably the pump fund markets are getting annihilated. I saw some crazy stats about the people that were trading meme coins in the past like 3 weeks. There was literally like very low percentages of people that were in profit. Like I want to say less than 5% at all. And I might have read that wrong, but that's what I remember. Layer 0 down 9.5%. PulseX down 7.5%. You got Tibber, which is on I think it's on virtuals on base down 11.1%. And Gala down 4. What's going on with Gala? Does anybody follow Gala? I mean, they were supposed to be this huge gaming environment, but they're down 4.8%. I know somebody that made a ton of money off of Gala last cycle, ton of money. But they're just not in the headlines. I don't really see them. Anyways, it's pulled back about 5%. XPL Plasma pulling back 2.7%. 9bit pulling back 5.6%. Frax pulling back 7.3%. Barachain pulling back 3.5%. Toast and Radium pulling back 7.1%. Syrup pulling back 4.7%. Optimism pulling back 1.6%. At least the bleed is kind of stopped for Optimism after the base announcement. Only down 1.6%. Stan says Morpho seems to be the toughest project so far. I mean, they are tough, right? They, from what I remember, they've had minimal pullback. While where are they ranked? I thought they're definitely in the top 200. 75. Okay, yeah. So they're in the top. What are they? Are they green? They must be green for you to say that. No, they're not green. Let's see. Oh, so they're down 1.2% right here. Not bad, not bad, but they definitely have shown strength, that's for sure. But also, they're the new Aave, right, of this cycle. So I felt like they've really kind of positioned themselves very well, because I'm sure there's a lot of competition that was trying to come up in that, and everybody was second fiddle to Aave, to where people didn't even really talk about them. But Morpho has definitely rised up this cycle to where people do always mention Morpho whenever they talk about Aave. All right, let's see if there's anything I missed in the top 200 here. I think that's it. I think that is it in terms of the top 200. All right, let's get back to some news, some crypto news here. See where I left off. Okay, Hyperliquid. Speaking of Hyperliquid, Hyperliquid. This is an article by The Block, which I love this website because they put out good information. It says I'm not showing you guys. Give me a second. Hyperliquid Web3 SuperApp Based. The app is called Based. I think it's called Based. Or is it called SuperApp? Anyways, it says raises 11.5 million Series A led by Pantera. Pantera is a large investment firm that focused on Web3. Goes on to say Based. So the name of it is Based, a Web3 trading and payments app built on Hyperliquid's infrastructure, has raised 11.5 million in a Series A funding. And for those that are wondering, is that a lot or a little bit? For Web3 right now, that's a lot, in my opinion. And so it says a funding round as it looks like to expand into AI-driven agentic commerce, right? The round was led by Pantera Capital with participation from Coinbase Ventures, Wintermute Ventures, and Caritage. Based on, it says Based said Monday. So that was a quote from them. It says fundraising began in the fourth quarter of 2025 and closed last week. Based co-founder and CEO Edison Lim told The Block, and says the round was structured as an equity investment with token warrants. Lim said, declining to disclose the firm's valuation. Interesting. I wonder why. And it says Pantera received an observer board seat as part of the deal. So that's good. They got Pantera on their board, right? Observer. So probably not too much power, but they can know what's happening in these board meetings and all that stuff, right? It says the Series A follows a 2022 investment announcement when the team, then operating under brand Sabera and focused on crypto payments, said it raised 2.7 million across 2 funding rounds, betting on a unified crypto app. Based is built on Hyperliquid's blockchain and trading infrastructure and positions itself as a consumer-facing Web3 super app that combines trading, wallet functionality, on and off ramps, and a crypto-linked Visa card into a single interface. The platform integrates perpetual futures trading, predictions markets, and crypto spending in one app. When asked how Base differs from using Hyperliquid directly, Lim said Hyperliquid serves as a trading engine, while Base provides the product layer designed for everyday users through a mobile-first interface intended to broaden access. All right, I'll finish it up here. It says if Hyperliquid is building house for finance, Base is already the front door to that house as a leading gateway to the Hyperliquid ecosystem. So that's what this app is going to be, focused on, right? I guess UI UX is going to be better because it's going to be mobile focused. They are building this also for agentic usage, which is going to be more and more interesting to see how that progresses, because it's easy to, use buzzwords right now, but because we've been through hype narratives in crypto so many times before. But what I've seen and done personally with something like Openclaw and agent like that, like the agentic marketplaces is happening. It's coming, and they're already doing some stuff, but it's going to get better and better. Anyways, yeah. So another thing to think about is Hyperliquid's chain and their infrastructure, right? How many more builders are going to come in and start building there? That is a question for sure. Oh, Van Wong 790 says USD1 depegged. Wow, that's not good. I wonder if that's happening actually right now, because I'm starting to get Luna vibes and I don't like it. Let's see what I found on X here. It says, why isn't the USD1 stablecoin stable? I mean, yeah, it's slightly depegged. You're looking at 99.71. Interesting. We'll see if that turns into something, but I appreciate that. And then Stan says, is the X Twitter token real? I don't think they launched the token. And if they did, no. I mean, what I'm seeing here is it looks like someone launched something on Pump Fund. That's definitely not going to be an official token, unless you're talking about a different token stand. If it's a Pump Fund token, it's not an official X token. That is for sure. All right. What else we got here? Let's see. So keep your eye on the Base app and their token, because that is going to be something that comes out, right? Oh, let's look. I didn't really do this real quick. I do want to review this for a second. Let's look at liquidation levels real quick, just because, you know, that can help us also kind of see where maybe Bitcoin wants to head as well. And we talked about, you know, the let me bring this up for 1 second. I promise I'm not gonna hang out here for too long. I want to bring this up because we can see maybe what liquidity areas they want to grab real quick. So yeah, it looks like it wants to come out of the buy pressure, right? And then if we're looking here, we're sitting at like 65.5. There's not a ton of liquidity to grab down. I mean, there is, but look at this, 66 right here. You got 15 million. It's starting to build up here in this area. Well, I don't know. Might be just better to sweep this down here, because there's just consecutive levels here that's at least like 6 to 8 to 10 being the highest. So that could be something to look at right there, guys. All right, let's go back to the news cycle. So silver lining here a little bit, right? You got ETF flows, Australia's Monochrome spot Bitcoin ETF increases holding. So institutions increasing, retail selling, that's kind of status quo right now. Retail, this has been the largest transfer of Bitcoin from retail to institutions ever, was 2025, and it continues into early right now. 700,000 Bitcoins have been sold from, and growing. That number is growing from retail. And institutions have bought 830,000 Bitcoins from 2025 until now. This is an example of that. So you guys are selling your Bitcoin to the institutions, but that's what happens during fearful times. All right, data shows prediction markets hits a record 38.01 million transactions last week, with Piolymarket leading the way. This is predictions markets is here, and it's going to just take over all the sports betting, and they're going to actually just have their own predictions markets in there. So this is something big. And then I'm going to hit on this, and then we'll get into the Openclaw stuff, because we are getting kind of close towards the end of the hour here. But this is kind of scary a little bit, I would think. You got Bitdeer exits its Bitcoin position, offloading 1,132 Bitcoin. So not huge for a mining company. And it says in total, reducing holdings to zero, though. Holdings to zero. So mining company is offloading all their Bitcoin and into a zero holding position, right? Is this because they think that Bitcoin is going to go down to the 200 moving average and maybe below, and they're in cash and then they can buy more cheaper? Probably. I think that could be a good strategy, you know, because if they're expecting that. And then also, you have to wonder too, are they starting to pivot a little bit maybe to AI, right? A lot of people are doing that, but Bitdeer is their name and they're a publicly traded company. So I would say it's probably a little bit more of the first option there. So that is something to look at and just think about. But again, Bitcoin going down means cheaper Bitcoin, which is better for me and for people that have conviction in it in the long term. That's how I look at it. All right, we're going to hop over to the Openclaw structure breakdown. And I'm talking about Openclaw because I've been utilizing it and really building out and just actually going back to and restructuring a little bit, excuse me, of how my structure looks like. But I wanted to kind of just go over a basic overview of how it works, or like how the structure I have learned is the most efficient. And because these are all real parts of Openclaw that I'm about to show you guys. But first, I want to kind of talk about, you know, how it looks, like the structure looks, and then I'm going to show you the visual as well. So first, the user is you, of course, right? Because the day that your main agent becomes the user, that's probably not a good day, right? But you are the user. You have the absolute last option for off and on switch. So you got to remember that, right? And then you have your Openclaw environment, which is either, SSH, which is VPS hosted by Hostinger, or locally hosted by yourself, right? And then you have your main agent, right? So that's the main agent there, which is where you plug an LLM into the brain. And like I said, if you're a member of my channel, I go into it much more deeper. You can go and check out the members video, but I'm going to do just quick overview here. So when I say plug a brain in, you get to pick your LLM that you want to be the main brain of this main agent. Opus 4.6, Codex 5.3, those are the top two, in my opinion. But if you can't afford API fees and those type of things, by the way, Codex 4.5.3 for OpenAI or ChatGPT allows you to use an OAuth approach and plug in your subscription. So, just heads out. Anthropic doesn't offer that. So there's kind of like this war happening right now between those two. Anyways, plug in the brain, you got your main agent. Below that are sub agents that your main agent will spin up, right? And I think it's probably better if I share this too. So what I just mentioned here was you're the user, your terminal area orchestrator runtime, right? Then you have your main agent, you're plugging in Opus 4.6, you're plugging in whatever you want, right? For me, Codex 5.3. Then you start to think about what you need, right? So content for a company like On-Chain Revolution, you need content, you need SEO, which is the search engine optimization, SEM, search engine marketing, all that stuff, right? So then I would spin up agents that specialize in that. Research news right here, right? Another sub agent for trading execution if you want that, right? Like Piolymarket or even Hyperliquid and stuff like that. This is kind of random put together, but and then another agent for content SEO. I talked about that already, right? So now you have your main agent and you have your 3 sub agents underneath. All right, so what you have to do to not make these agents, and you can actually technically you could plug in an LLM brain for these sub agents that are different. So if I had Codex 5.3 here, I could use Opus 4.6 for these, or ChatGPT 4.5 or whatever, right? That's the best fitted. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that right now. Maybe in the future, but you can just leave kind of the same one that's in the main agent into these sub agents. Now, the next thing that's really important here is that you're crafting your soul.md. So my best approach to do that is utilizing another window with Claude or something that I'm not plugged in here, right? And telling them, hey, I need a Soul MD for a research news specialized sub agent, right? I need it to be very ambitious, motivated, and loves to dig deep into research and doesn't stop until it finds a solution for pain points, right? And then you can give it some personality as well, type A because they love research and organized, motivation, what I just went over, right? And you're going to do that for all 3 sub agents because they're going to be unique to what their actual position is. Okay. So once you do that, that's great. You have them you've crafted them, customized them. Then you go to the agents.md, and each one of your sub agents is going to have a role, right? For example, research news ops, right? And then trading ops, and then content SEO ops, right? Whatever you want to name them. But what it does is it really kind of puts the lid on what their position is and what they specialize in. Then you start to add a skill MD to each of these sub agents, and you're going to add one. So for the main agent, the best thing I found is like project management type of soul, right? And then skills. This is the fun, the awesome part. For the skills, what you do is you have Claude or something else really build out skills packages for you. For example, For the research side, you could put, I need a skills package for like top level, huge corporation researcher, or university level researcher, Harvard level researcher, or something like that, right? And what the Opus will do is just basically start to write the description of what the skill is. It's knowledge base, okay? And you're adding that knowledge base to a library, a skills library, okay? And then once it does that, you will add it to wherever you're hosting your Openclaw. It's going to go into the skills library. Now these agents will pull from the library and use the knowledge on certain tasks that you have for them, right? So you want to create skills that are specifically will help your sub agents and all these things, right? Project management skills, top level, corporation project manager, whatever, right? Those kind of things. So that's what you'll do here. Then the memory store, memory MD, this is very important, because if you don't have this created, what your Openclaw is yeah, they'll have these skills and stuff like that, but like they'll kind of reset every time. It's like whenever you're using ChatGPT or something like that, right? But when you create the memory storage and layers, and I would actually add a learning layer in there, right? What it does is they look to that before they take on any task or ask anything, right? They look to that memory layer, right? And then very important as well, the tools MD. So all these sub agents and main agent needs to have one of each of these that you're customizing, right, for them. And then the tools MD is the activation layer for them, right? So it lets them know that, like, okay, I am the research news sub agent. I know these, I have access to all these skills packages that are going to help me do this job very well. Now my tools MD makes me execute that. Like, it basically, the execution layer is what it is. Okay. So then all this stuff flows into each one of their individual workspace files. Okay. So now you're building a team that's like a robust, like monster team, right? And then you can tackle whatever you need to. This is how you get your workflow, your personal workflow, really optimized, right? So I hope that helped you guys, because it's helped me a lot. Like, once I realized how this worked, it definitely was initially, it was trial and error type situation. But I got to a point to where I felt extremely confident in my main agent and my sub agents, because I'm building them up to be able to be a well-oiled machine type situation that's running. How does this connect to Web3? Well, I've been able to figure out how to have autonomous sub agents, buy meme coins on Solana autonomously by research and things like that, right? Buying and selling autonomously, mind you. You can have these agents do deep research for you on up and coming companies, tokens, et cetera, et cetera. This is a world changing type of situation, I truly believe, but you can specialize it to any industry that that you want to focus on, right? And you get them to focus on it. But I know it's a little bit, right now crypto and AI agents are crossing. And so I definitely wanted to cover this in today's space, and hopefully helped you guys, because I wanted, like I said, every live stream, every piece of content, I hope that I can bring value to you guys, because you guys are giving me your attention, and I'm really appreciative of that. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Oh, one other thing is, if you can't afford the API credits, right? And I hit on this on the Friday's recording, because I was out Friday, is go to NVIDIA or build.nvidia.com, sign up for a developer account. It's free. And then you get a 12-month API for Kimi K2.5, which is in between ChatGPT and, I would say, like Opus 4.5. So it codes pretty well. I used it. What I did was before I paid for like the expensive subscription for Codex, I did everything with Kimmy. I set up my base infrastructure with Kimmy because I didn't need to, pay a lot of money to do that. And Kimmy is definitely competent for that. So I would say it's between Opus 4.5 and ChatGPT 4.5. So you get logic, reasoning, and all that, and with a good, solid coding structure base, I would say. And you can get the API free from NVIDIA. The one thing I think is when you sign up for a developer account, they just want to be able to see what you're building. I guess there's a lot of people that are companies that are doing that right now with AI, which makes sense. I mean, if they're going to give you free API, then they got to get something back, right? All right. I'll make sure I didn't miss any big headlines or anything to finish off the show. Oh, this is something too. I would say that's a pretty big deal. You got Metaplanet CEO Simon Gurovic. He argues AI agents will bypass banks and hold digital capital like Bitcoin as values of storage. So that's crazy. But stuff like this, these type of headlines, and OpenAI purchasing Openclaw, those are things that make me really believe that crypto and Web3 is going to be a big, big part of the future of AI. And it's something that like the crypto industry didn't have to like conjure up or like, create some fake hype out of. It was something that was actually fell into our laps first time ever. I felt like that. And so you have base and stuff with X402. I think it's going to work very well together, but headlines like this is what makes me stay focused on, the AI side of our space. And I think our space is going to benefit immensely from it. And I hope that you guys are, continue alongside this journey with me to learn together and, be able to, learn and be able to use these skills that we learn for our benefits, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what learning is for the end of the day. But I appreciate all you guys hanging out with me. And until tomorrow, I'll be live tomorrow again. Oh, one other thing too, I'm working again with my family's business and stuff. So schedule might change a little bit here and there. I'm going to continue this brand no matter what, because I believe that there's a good future for it, and I love interacting with you guys and all that stuff. But the schedules just might be a little bit different. And I got a lot of news coming too for people that are building in the Bitcoin ecosystem too. Something's brewing over there. But of course, I'll let you guys know once the time is right for that. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and until tomorrow, peace.